Every day, thousands of people walk through the glass doors of Metropolitan Airport. They rush to their flights, checking their phones, pulling their luggage. Nobody notices the man sitting on the cold tile floor in the corner. His clothes are dirty. His shoes are falling apart. His hands are stretched out in front of him, holding a paper cup. His name is Marcus, and he's been panhandling at this airport for 3 years. What Marcus doesn't know is that one ordinary Tuesday morning, his entire life is about to change forever. A mysterious man in worn-out clothes walks by and drops some money in his cup. But this isn't just any man. This is Richard Hammond, the billionaire owner of Metropolitan Airport itself, and he's about to teach Marcus a lesson about dignity, respect, and second chances that will leave him speechless. If you want to see how one rich man's disguise leads to an incredible act of kindness that changes everything, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Asterisk, who is Marcus? Asterisk. Marcus Williams was 34 years old, but he looked 50. His face was weathered, his eyes tired, his spirit broken by years of struggle. Once, he'd had a different life. He'd worked as an electrician, making decent money, supporting himself. But in 2021, his company downsized. Then his apartment rent went up. Then his mother got sick, and her medical bills destroyed his savings. One bad choice led to another, and within a year, Marcus found himself on the streets. He tried everything to get back on his feet. He applied for jobs, but his address kept changing. He went to shelters, but they were overcrowded and chaotic. He reached out to family, but they'd grown tired of helping someone who seemed hopeless. By 2024, Marcus had given up trying. He panhandled at the airport because it was warm inside, busy enough that security mostly left him alone, and kind travelers sometimes gave him money for food. Every dollar he collected was survival: a sandwich, a bottle of water, a place to sleep in a cheap motel. He had no plan for tomorrow, no dream for next year, no hope for change. He was simply existing, day after day, invisible to the thousands of people who walked past him. Asterisk, who is Richard Hammond? Asterisk. Richard Hammond lived in a different world entirely. At 62 years old, he had everything money could buy. His family had made their fortune in real estate and aviation. Richard had inherited billions and added even more through smart investments and careful business decisions. He owned Metropolitan Airport outright, along with 3 other major airports in different states. His office was on the top floor of the airport's administrative building, a floor most people didn't even know existed. From his desk, he could see the entire airport laid out below him. The runways, the terminals, the parking lots, the thousands of people arriving and leaving every single day. To Richard, the airport was his kingdom, and he was the king. But Richard was lonely. He'd been married once, but his wife left him because he was always working. His children were grown and barely spoke to him. He had money but no real relationships. He had power but no one who loved him. He had a legacy, but it felt empty. His therapist had suggested something radical: you should get out of your office more. See what's really happening in your airports. Talk to people. Remember what it's like to be human. Richard thought this was ridiculous advice. But as he got older, he kept thinking about it. What did he really know about the people who used his airports? What stories did they have? What struggles did they face? So one Tuesday morning in November, Richard decided to do something crazy. He dressed himself in old clothes, jeans with holes, a faded shirt, a jacket he'd owned 20 years ago. He put on a baseball cap to hide his recognizable face. He looked like any other ordinary, struggling person. He walked into his own airport and sat down in the terminal, just watching people go by. Asterisk, the first encounter. Asterisk. Marcus was in his usual spot near gate 14, where the hallway made a corner and people sometimes sat to rest. His paper cup was in front of him, half filled with bills and coins. It had been a slow morning. Lots of business travelers, most of them looking at their phones, not at him. Then a man in old clothes sat down about 10 feet away from him. Marcus didn't look up. He'd learned not to make eye contact with people. It made some of them uncomfortable. But he noticed the man was staring at him. Richard was studying Marcus carefully. He saw the dirt under his fingernails, the way his shoulders curved inward, as if trying to make himself smaller. The exhaustion in his eyes. The tremor in his hands when he moved. This wasn't someone lazy or choosing to beg. This was someone who had suffered real trauma and loss. Richard stood up and walked over to Marcus. "Hey," Richard said, his voice gentle. "How long have you been here?" Marcus looked up, surprised. Most people didn't talk to him. "A while," Marcus said. 3 years, more or less." 3 years, Richard repeated, sitting down beside him. "That's a long time. What's your story?" No one had asked Marcus that question in years. Usually, people either ignored him or told him to move. But this man wanted to know his story. Something about his voice sounded genuine. So Marcus talked. He told Richard about being an electrician, about his mother's illness, about losing his job, about how everything fell apart. He talked for 10 minutes straight, telling this stranger things he'd never told anyone. When he finished, he felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because he'd finally spoken the truth out loud, heavier because saying it made it real. Richard listened to every word. And then he did something that shocked Marcus. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a roll of $100 bills, and handed 5 of them to Marcus. $500, Richard said. "That's a start." Marcus's hands shook as he held the money. I don't understand. Why would you do that?" "Because everyone deserves a chance," Richard said. "And because I can." Then Richard stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of travelers. Marcus sat there, holding $500 bills, not quite believing what had just happened. A moment of hope. For the first time in years, Marcus had real money. He used it carefully. He paid for a clean hotel room, took a hot shower, and washed his clothes. He bought a decent meal. But he was also terrified. Money was temporary. He needed to think about what came next. The $500 lasted 3 weeks. Marcus was careful with it, stretching every dollar. But it also gave him something he hadn't had in years. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to hope. He started looking for work more seriously. The problem was his appearance. No one wanted to hire a man with no permanent address who'd been living on the streets. He applied to 20 places. 19 rejected him immediately. 1 gave him a chance. It was a small construction company doing renovation work at the airport. The manager, a man named Tom, was desperate for workers. He didn't ask many questions. He just needed someone who could show up and work hard. "We pay cash at the end of each day," Tom said. $14 an hour. "You interested?" Marcus was more than interested. He was grateful. The work begins. For the next 6 weeks, Marcus worked harder than he'd ever worked in his life. The job was demolition work for a terminal renovation, tearing out old walls, removing fixtures, carrying debris. It was exhausting, and his body, weakened by years of poverty, protested every day. His muscles ached. His hands blistered. But he showed up every morning, and he worked until the job was done. Tom watched Marcus carefully. He saw a man who was determined to change his life. He saw dedication that most people didn't have. When the project was finished, Tom did something unexpected. "I'm hiring you full-time," he said. "We've got another airport project starting next month. $16 an hour, and I'll help you find a place to stay. There's a boarding house a few blocks away. Not fancy, but clean. I know the owner. She'll rent to you." Marcus cried for the first time in years. Real tears, running down his face. Someone believed in him. Building a new life. With steady work and steady money, things changed for Marcus. He moved into the boarding house. He opened a bank account, the first one he'd had in 5 years. He bought new clothes from a thrift store. He got a library card and started reading again. He attended a support group for people struggling with homelessness and addiction. He made a plan. 6 months after that man in old clothes gave him $500, Marcus had saved nearly $8,000. He'd worked on 4 different projects for Tom. His boss had given him a raise to $18 an hour. He was stronger, healthier, and more hopeful than he'd been since before his mother got sick. But the money kept tugging at his mind. Who was that man? Why had he helped him? Where had he gone? Marcus started asking around the airport. He asked security guards, maintenance workers, shop owners. Nobody remembered a man in old clothes handing out $500. It was like a ghost had walked through his life and changed everything. Asterisk the unexpected discovery asterisk. One day, about 8 months after the initial encounter, Marcus was working on a renovation project near the airport's administrative offices. Tom asked him to deliver some paperwork to the building's main office. Marcus took the elevator up to the 15th floor, which was higher than he'd ever been in the airport. When the elevator doors opened, he saw something that made his heart stop. There was a large portrait hanging on the wall. It was the man from that Tuesday morning, but he was clean, well-dressed, and smiling in a suit. And beneath the portrait was a nameplate, Richard Hammond, airport owner and CEO. Marcus's legs felt weak. He had to sit down on a nearby bench. The man who'd given him $500 was the billionaire owner of the entire airport, the richest man Marcus had ever encountered. And he dressed himself in old clothes and sat down next to a beggar to talk to him like a human being. Asterisk the confrontation asterisk. Marcus didn't know what to do. He wanted to thank Richard. He wanted to tell him what had happened. He wanted Richard to know that his $500 had literally saved his life. But how could a man like him get an audience with a billionaire? He asked Tom about it carefully. How do you get to meet Richard Hammond? Tom laughed. You don't, usually. Unless you work directly for his company. Why do you want to meet him? Marcus thought about lying, but instead he told Tom the truth. He told him about the man in old clothes, about the $500, about how it changed his life. Tom's expression shifted. He looked at Marcus carefully, then he picked up his phone. Let me make a call, he said. 20 minutes later, Marcus was in an elevator heading to the top floor of the airport administration building. His heart was pounding. His palms were sweating. He'd never been this nervous in his life. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped out into a modern, beautiful office space. A receptionist smiled at him and pointed to a door. Mr. Hammond is waiting for you. Richard Hammond was sitting behind a huge mahogany desk, looking exactly like the portrait. But when he saw Marcus, his expression changed to one of recognition and joy. Marcus, he said, standing up immediately. You're Marcus, aren't you? Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Come, sit down, Richard said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. Tell me what happened. Tell me everything. So Marcus told him. He told him about the construction job, the boarding house, the savings account, the support group. He told him about how that $500 had given him hope when he had none. He told him how that moment of kindness had changed his entire life trajectory. Richard listened with tears in his eyes. When Marcus finished, Richard stood up and walked around the desk. He put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus, I have to tell you something, Richard said. I came to the airport that day because I was lonely. I was rich, but I was unhappy. I wanted to understand what real struggle looked like. I wanted to remember what it means to be human. And then I met you. Do you understand what happened? Marcus shook his head. You changed my life, Richard said. You taught me that money without compassion is meaningless. You showed me that the people I thought were invisible, people like you, are actually the most visible, the most real. You changed me, Marcus. Asterisk the surprise offer asterisk. Richard walked to a folder on his desk and opened it. It was full of documents. I've been tracking you, Richard said. Not in a creepy way, I hope. Tom told me about your progress. I've watched you go from $0 to $8,000 in savings. I've watched you work harder than people I employ who make 5 times your salary. I've watched you come back to life. He placed the documents in front of Marcus. These are documents for a business opportunity, Richard explained. I want to start a new initiative at all my airports. It's called the Second Chance Program. We identify people struggling with homelessness and give them job training, employment opportunities, and support. I want you to run it. Marcus looked at the papers without understanding what he was reading. What does that mean? He asked quietly. It means you'll be a manager, Richard said. You'll have an office here, not in the airport terminal. You'll make $60,000 a year, plus benefits. You'll have authority to hire people, train them, and help them build new lives like you did. You'll be using your experience to help others in your situation. Marcus felt the room spinning. I'm not qualified. I've been homeless for 3 years. I don't have a degree. I don't have experience managing. You have something better, Richard interrupted. You have empathy. You have understanding. You have been where they are. That's worth more than any degree. I'll provide all the training you need. Marcus couldn't speak. Tears were running down his face. But there's something else, Richard continued. Something I want you to know. That $500 I gave you wasn't an accident. It wasn't random charity. It was me testing something. I wondered if money alone could change someone's life. And the answer is no. Money is just a tool. What changes lives is hope. What changes lives is someone believing in you. What changes lives is a real opportunity. The press conference. 1 month later, Richard held a press conference to announce the Second Chance program. It would operate at all 4 of his airports. The goal was to employ 100 formerly homeless people per airport over the next year. The program included job training, temporary housing assistance, mental health counseling, and mentorship. And the program director was Marcus Williams. When Richard introduced Marcus to the media, you could see the surprise on reporters' faces. This was a man they'd probably walked past dozens of times when he was panhandling. Now he was standing on stage, in a suit, as the director of a major corporate program. 3 years ago, I was sitting on the floor of this airport asking for spare change, Marcus told the assembled cameras. I didn't believe my life would ever get better. But one person took time to listen to my story. One person gave me hope. And then one person gave me opportunity. I didn't get rich because of that. I got my life back. That's worth more than any amount of money. He paused, looking directly at Richard. This program isn't about charity, Marcus continued. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging that people who are struggling aren't worthless. They're not invisible. They're people with skills, with potential, with dreams. All they need is one person to believe in them. The real transformation. The Second Chance program became more successful than anyone imagined. In the first year, 87 people were hired. 73 of them were still employed after a year. 42 had found permanent housing. 21 had gone back to school. The numbers were remarkable, but the real impact was in the stories. There was Janet, who'd been homeless for 4 years after a bad divorce, who became a customer service supervisor. There was David, an addict who'd lost everything, who became a security training specialist. There was Lisa, a woman with mental health issues, who became a program assistant and used her own experience to help others struggling with depression. Each of these people had a Marcus-like story. Each of them met Richard Hammond during his visits to the airports, dressed in regular clothes, listening to their struggles. And each of them received an opportunity that changed everything. But the program also transformed Richard. He spent less time in his fancy office and more time in the airport terminals, talking to people. He started a foundation to fund similar programs in other cities. He wrote a book about what he'd learned. And most importantly, he found something he'd been missing for years: purpose. The message for all of us. The story of Richard and Marcus teaches us something profound about human nature and dignity. It shows that wealth without compassion is empty. It shows that people struggling don't need judgment, they need understanding. It shows that one person, acting with kindness, can change another person's entire future. But it also shows something else, that sometimes, the person being helped is also the one doing the teaching. Marcus didn't know he was teaching Richard Hammond a lesson about what it means to be human. But he was. And Richard's wealth, which seemed so powerful, turned out to be less important than his willingness to listen, to see, and to care. What happened next? 2 years after that first encounter, Richard created an annual award called the Marcus Williams Prize. It went to employees of his company who exemplified compassion and made a real difference in someone's life. The first recipient was Tom, the construction manager who'd hired Marcus and believed in him. Marcus got his GED, then enrolled in community college. Richard supported him, but he also made sure Marcus understood that this was Marcus's journey, not Richard's charity. Marcus worked full-time while going to school part-time. It took him 3 years, but he earned an associate degree in business management. By his 40th birthday, Marcus was one of Richard's most trusted executives. But he never forgot where he came from. He took the airport job seriously, understanding that each person he hired wasn't just an employee, they were someone's second chance. And Richard, now in his 60s, found something he hadn't had in decades: real friendship. Marcus became more than an employee. He became Richard's closest friend. They had dinners together. They talked about life, struggles, and what it meant to be human. Richard stopped being lonely because he finally understood that loneliness comes from isolation, and isolation ends when you truly connect with other people. The ultimate lesson. The real message of this story isn't about money. It's not even about charity. It's about recognition. It's about seeing people. It's about understanding that everyone has a story, everyone has value, and everyone deserves dignity. When Richard sat down next to Marcus and listened to his story, he did something revolutionary. He treated him like a human being. In our world, where we rush past people, where we pretend homeless people are invisible, where we judge people by their appearance, this simple act of listening was radical. And it changed both of their lives. Final message and call to action. The story of Richard Hammond and Marcus Williams isn't just a feel-good story. It's a mirror showing us what we're capable of when we choose compassion. One rich man's disguise revealed something beautiful, that the greatest wealth isn't money, it's the ability to see people, really see them, and recognize their humanity. If this story reminded you that one person truly can change another person's life, hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. We share stories that inspire, that show what's possible when people choose kindness, and that remind us of our own capacity for greatness. Have you ever been a Marcus, given a second chance by someone who believed in you? Or have you been a Richard, offered help to someone who needed it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire thousands of people watching this to change someone's life today. There's a powerful detail at 2:34 in this video where Marcus realizes who Richard really is. Watch again and tell us how that moment moved you in the comments below. Don't miss our next story of transformation and hope. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell.